Welcome to my channel. This is Neferkefri, the Positive Vibes Artist. If you like this video, please give it a like when you're done with it and give my channel a follow. This is what is called a completion circle. I include this in my bullet journal every year, and it's a form of a blessing. And I got the idea originally from Leonie Dawson's 2014 Create Your Amazing Year Life and Biz Edition workbook. She no longer publishes this particular edition. This one did go on for a number of years, but she's got a new one out. So if you want to check it out, she's at leoniedawson.com, and I will link to that below. It's a little workbook, and it has her prompts and her artwork, and this is what she calls a completion circle. And basically, you create the circle in your journal, and you place your hand in it once you're done with it to receive the energies. So this is something that you create with intention, okay? Creating with intention means you're holding a particular thought in your mind as you're creating your piece, and what you're thinking of as you're drawing it, as you're designing it, that energy goes into that piece so that every time you look at that piece, it releases that intention back out into the universe, and it also refreshes that intention in your mind so that, you know, the intention becomes stronger over time. This is something that I've done since 2014 when I first got that workbook, and I really like it. It's a nice little exercise with which to begin the year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I drew this. I turned my circle into a sunflower. You can turn it into a flower if you want. You can leave it as is, or maybe make it like a wheel with spokes, or a sun, or a full moon, you know, anything that's round. The only requirement is that your image be large enough so that you can place your hand in it. So this would be a little bit of a problem in like an A6 size journal, but you know, anything you can place your hand in, or most of your hand, will be fine. So what I did here is I'm going to show you how I did this from start to finish, and I'm going to show you on this piece of paper. So basically what you need is you need a pencil. Well, there went my journal. Yeah, I do my videos in one take, folks. So if stuff like that happens, you're going to hear it, okay? Just because, yeah, a very busy person, and I don't have all day to do retakes. Okay. You're going to need a compass and a pencil for this. Now, what you do, first of all, let's pretend this is your journal page, okay? This is actually an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And so basically you find the center of your journal. Now most journals, well not most, but if you use a dot grid journal, all you have to do is count the boxes to figure out where the middle is. You count in from the side and down or up from the edges. So let's say that's the dead center. And so you're going to make your circle. And again, it should be large enough in which you can place your hand. And so you basically will do your circle. Now, depending on what you want to do with your circle, you may want to make some concentric circles. If you're doing like what I did with a sunflower, what I did is I first went in and I did my interior circle for the center of the sunflower. And of course, there goes my pencil. Let's see, here we go. Okay, and then I did the outside. I did not do a third circle for the larger petals, but I'm going to do that here just so you can see how that would be done. So again, you just keep aware of where your center is and keep the center of your compass on that. And then you will draw a third circle around your first two. All right, and once that's done, Next, you'll need a ruler. And this is only going to be at most about 6 inches across. Because again, remember, you're going to be working in a journal probably smaller than this, unless you're working in like a B5 or a journal that's size, you know, paper size 8.5 by 11, A4. So again, you go to your middle, and basically what I do is I just eyeball it. So I go to the middle, I figure out what is straight up and down and halfway. And again, if you're using dot grid, it's really easy to line up your ruler. You draw a line down, and you're going to draw a line across. And what this is going to do, it's going to make it very easy for you to place the petals of your flower. If you want a really symmetrical look, like I do, you may not want a very symmetrical look. You may want, you know, a more natural look. And I'm going to go over this in pen so you can see what I've done here. That's where I found the center of the page. Here is the smaller circumference circle, which is the center of, going to be the center of my flower. And around the edge is the larger circle for the first layer of petals. And then around that is a slightly larger circle for the third layer of petals. Now, of course, in your journal, you won't go over this with a pen. I'm just doing this so it shows up better on my camera so you can see it. Then I took my ruler and I went back to the midpoint and kind of eyeballed straight up and down the middle. And I drew one line in, and then I drew the other line going across. Then I'm going to draw 2 lines going diagonal. And again, this is so I know where to place my petals, because I'm going to want them to be symmetrical. And again, you don't have to do this unless you want a symmetrical look to whatever it is you're drawing inside your circle. Okay, now I'll refer back to my journal for a second to remind you of what the design looked like. But this is what we're going to be working on. Now, when you're designing with intention, a completion circle is for giving thanks for all that happened in 2021. And yes, that does include the bad, because the bad tends to be lessons for us. So you express gratitude for that. And then in order to bring in positive energies for 2022, you then say something like, I am open to receive the blessings that 2022 has to offer me, or something to that effect. And my take on this is a little reworded from Leonie's version. And I have here, I express gratitude for 2021. I am open to blessings. As I inhale light and love, I let go of what no longer serves me. Meaning that I'm going to leave the past in the past. Okay? So now this is what we're going to do. What we're going to design here. So then what I would do with this, and remember, I'm only using pen so you can see what I'm doing. When you're designing this, of course, you'll be using pencil. Because if you use pen, there's no erasing this. So if you're going to do a sunflower, what I did is I just did a really wonky, wavy line around the center. Now then, I started at what would be the 12 o'clock position, if this were at the face of a clock. Now remember, I'm going to have 2 rows of petals here. So this first circle will be my first set of petals, and this outer circle will be done last, and that will be the exterior circle of petals. So I just start here at 12, or you can start wherever you want, but I just go and make a slightly curved line back to the center. And then I'll turn my paper, and it is fine as you're working on your paper to turn it. I recommend that. And I also recommend to work on a table where you have enough room that as you're working in your journal, you can also rotate your journal. That just makes everything easier, and it'll make your designs look more symmetrical and cleaner. Okay, so now I've got my 4 petals at the 4 cardinal points if this were a compass, and then I go back to the diagonals, and I'll do the same thing. Now, since I'm doing a flower, I don't really have to worry about the size of the petals, about keeping them all consistently the same, because we all know flower petals, even on a sunflower, are not exactly the same. So you don't have to be a perfectionist in this, just as I finished off those lines there. Like I said, you don't have to be a perfectionist. Now you go back to the center and we have all these gaps. And then you'll just fill those gaps with another petal. And again, you're going all the way around. Turning your paper as you go. Okay, yeah, my pen is starting to dry out. If you're wondering, I'm using a Tombow Fudenosuke. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Pen, and this is the hard. Yes, this is the hard tip. There's also one with a softer tip. The tip gives you a little bit more of a give on the softer pen, which I prefer, but I use this one for drawing if I'm going to draw something and I want it to be permanent. Now, for the outer circle of petals, you go to the gap in between petals and just pick a point along the petals where you're going to start your next row. And it can be anywhere you want. You can start it from up here, here, down here. It doesn't matter, but be sure it's basically about the same all the way around if you're going for that symmetrical look. So I would start about here and I'll go up to the edge of that outer circle, and then I just work my way around as I am filling in the rest of the petals for my sunflower. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually start with smaller circles and do like 3 concentric circles for your petals. So you'd have 3 rows of petals coming out of your flower if you wanted to. You know, you can make this as simple or as elaborate as you like because, hey, it's your journal. So it's your rules, right? That's what I say. My rules, my rules. I say my journal, my rules. Okay, so now my sunflower is complete. Now, if I were actually working in a journal, I would not have used pen for the concentric circles and the ruler lines. So I would have gone back in and erased all this, which is what I did here. Now what you can do, you can leave it as is. I mean, it looks very nice as a black and white drawing. I see I have pencil marks under my lettering. Whoops. So I'm going to go through and erase that. What I like to do, I like to add some watercolor. I am a watercolorist. I love watercolor, and I actually have a palette that would be perfect for this. This is the Sunflowers palette. This is by Addison and Sedgwick. She is on Instagram. I will link to her below. This is her sunflower palette, and these colors are all perfect for these type of flowers. And I happen to truly love sunflowers. I have a very vivid memory from my childhood, and I believe it's one of my, it actually is. It's one of my earliest memories, and I'm like about 4, maybe 5 years old, and my father and grandfather are out standing, talking in front of the sunflowers, and my grandfather had planted them like a couple of years before. And that summer, they grew to be taller than my dad and my grandfather. And so they're out there talking, and the heads of these huge sunflowers are just towering over them. And you can imagine how impressive that was to a little, 5-year-old. So it's just its image has always been emblazoned upon my brain. And so sunflowers have always been special to me. So when Addison and Sedgwick came out with this palette, I just had to have it. And it was also the first paint I ever bought from Carrie, and these are wonderful. She makes wonderful paints. I also got her advent calendar that has 25 paints named after cities around the world, and those are all fabulous colors. So I'm so glad I splurged and bought that for myself. I probably won't use this one. I don't know. We'll see. So, now what I'm going to do is just go over and add color. And let's see what colors am I going to use. I'm not going to need the green either. I'm going to need these and the browns. And you just add a few drops to your watercolor to activate the paint. And I am using brushes. I bought these off of Amazon and they are pretty inexpensive. I will try to link to them below. And I have a size 0 here and a size 4. I tend to use the size 4 when I paint. That just seems to be my go-to size because it's not too small and it's not too big. So it's usually perfect for most things. So I'm going to go in with my lightest color first. I'm going to do the petals first. I don't want to do the dark center because I don't want that dark color to come out into the petals. Other times I might do that. I've done sunflowers where I have allowed the dark color from the center to bleed out into the yellow, and it gives it a very pretty look. But I'm not going to do that today. Now, as you're doing this, remember, this is a completion circle. This is to release everything from 2021 and to open yourself to receive the blessings that are coming in 2022. And so you just keep that thought in your mind. You're releasing, you're sending things out, and you're grateful for what happened in the past. But you're also ready for those new blessings to come in. Now, I'm just going over with this yellow-orange shade. That will add a little depth to the petals. I am using an Archer and Olive A5 size journal. Archer and Olive paper is 160 GSM. GSM is the weight of the paper, basically the thickness of it. And pretty much anything that is 140 or above is going to do well for taking watercolor. Now, with a journal, though, you do have to be careful. You can't use a ton of water because it will bleed through to the opposite page. So just be careful how much water you use. I mean, my brush is not saturated with water, but you see, I have plenty of paint on there, and I just go along and swoosh it on there. Go on to the next petal because I still have plenty on my brush. That way I'm not wasting any paint. This will stay wet for a good amount of time because this is not watercolor paper. The paint is sitting basically on the surface of the paper, so it won't sink into the fibers of the paper very quickly. And so that gives you time to go back and add your darker colors for some shading and to add any details you may want. Just remember, if you are using watercolor, as you add these other colors, they are going to blend into your first layer, which for this flower is what I want. Other things you may not want that, and if you don't, you can use a hair dryer to speed up the drying of your paints, or a heat tool, otherwise known as a heat gun. And those are easily available on Amazon. I'll try to link to that below also, if I remember. So all I'm doing is I'm focusing on everything from 2021 to release it and to send it off with love. I actually had a pretty good year last year. So I don't really have that much to dwell on. That's, oops, too much paint. That is undesired or sad. So 2021 was pretty good. I mean, geez, it beats the heck out of 2020, that's for sure. I'm sure everybody's 2021 most people's is much better than 2020. And here's hoping 2022 is even better still. So see, I'm just going through and just lackadaisically adding that darker paint. You know, I'm not being perfect and fastidious here. Because again, flowers are meant to look natural. You want kind of a natural, somewhat natural look. I mean, the overall shape itself isn't very natural, but that's how I wanted to draw it. Now, as I'm going around and I am concluding my circle of petals for releasing 2021, I am now thinking about being open to the blessings coming in during 2022. And I'm telling myself I am open to receive 2022 will be filled with blessings for me, for my family, for my other loved ones. And 2022, I affirm, is going to be a great year. There you go. That is the first layer of petals. Now what I would do is wait for these to dry. I don't want to go in and do these petals in the background next because this paint is still wet and it'll just bleed right into it and I'll end up with a big yellow glob here. But I'm going to go into the center now and work on that. Now these colors are darker, and if they bleed out into the petals a little bit, that'll be fine. Oh, I just got some red in my brown, but that won't bother me. And again, these are watercolors. And basically, I'm going for a looser look in the middle. Now, see how the water is just kind of sitting on the surface? Again, that's because this is not watercolor paper. It's not very absorbent. And that gives you time to move the color around. And then you can get it to do things. And if I drag it a little bit into the petals, it'll add a little darkness to the center. So I'll do that. And all I'm doing is dragging paint out with my brush. And there we go. I think I'm going to add just a teeny bit more of that red. And that's pretty much it. So then what you would do once this is completed for your completion circle, you would just place your hand on it. Now, this should be your power hand, your dominant hand, the hand you write with. I happen to be a lefty. So I would put my left hand on there. I'll use my right hand though, because most people are right-handed. And then I would just take a few deep breaths, relax, center myself, and then either say aloud or think it in my mind, I express gratitude for 2021. I express gratitude for everything that came in 2021, the good and the not so good, realizing the not so good comes to us as lessons that we need to master in one way or another. Then I would move on to the second quadrant of my completion circle and say, I am open to blessings. I am open to receiving the blessings coming to me in 2022. Then I would move down to the lower right-hand quadrant and say, as I inhale light and love, and I would take several deep breaths in and out, in and out, as I visualize myself breathing in light, and that light going down into my chest and transforming into love and spreading throughout my body as love, and that love comes out on the exhale so that others can benefit from that higher vibration as well. Then I go to the final quadrant and I focus on, I let go of what no longer serves me. And again, remembering to breathe in deeply and exhale. You breathe in the blessings, you exhale what no longer serves you. And that is the completion circle for 2022. I've got some paint leaking where I don't want it to leak. Okay. But there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this. I would then, the next step be, wait for this yellow to dry, and I would go in and paint these petals in the background. If you follow me on Instagram, I'll be posting the completed page to my Instagram. And I'll also figure out a way to copy it so I can share it. I'll share it in my stories, and so you can download the image if you like, and maybe print it out on sticker paper and stick it down in your journal, or just on regular paper and glue it down. If you want to use it, feel free. So this is Nefra Kefri, the Positive Vibes artist. I thank you for tuning in. In brief, my materials were Tombow Fudenosuke, hard tip calligraphy pen, ruler, paintbrushes, watercolors handmade by Addison and Sedgwick, linked below, a compass, and an A5 journal by Archer and Olive. All this linked below. I'm also an Archer and Olive affiliate. My code is Positive Vibes 10, Positive Vibes all in caps. And if you use that code at Archer and Olive, it'll get you 10% off. And I would also get a teeny tiny commission, and I would really appreciate your support. So again, thank you for tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Have a lovely day.